Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. What's going on, everyone? Oh, it's 12:22 on the dot, on the clock, and today is Thursday, November 6th. Oh, look at that, 12:22 and November 6th. I hope you all are doing well. I hope wow, I don't think I've spoken to you since, was it really Halloween? No, really? Nah, I think I've been on since then. I want to say I've been on since then, but it feels like it's been a little while. And particularly on account that these cards have been on my desk for at least about the last 2 days. So it may have been that far back. I'm not gonna lie, full transparency, I've been a bit intimidated by these cards because it seems like such a pivotal message that when I first sat down, I think it was Monday, maybe it was Tuesday, I sat down to shuffle to get prepared for a message. And I didn't get very far before these three plopped out together. So I was like, wow. And they plopped out, turned over. So I turned them over and I was like, okay, what's this about? And I really tried to sit and meditate on it. And a lot of things were coming up in the spirit. And I was like, oh, I'm going to just sit that to the side because that's too much right now. So I sat it to the side. I want to say it might have been the next day. I was just fooling around with my cards that were just sitting on the table, and I like split the deck and shuffled the pile on top, and lo and behold, evolution was the card. Now, for those that don't know, these are my first oracle. This is my first oracle deck. Each card is a summation in one word that represents each card in the Rider-Waite deck in the traditional tarot. So evolution, believe it or not, represents the world card. Now, when I first pulled that, I really didn't make that connection, but again, I set it all to the side, and I was like, hold up, I think that's the world card. So anyway, I honestly still don't know where to start with this, and I'm not sure, even as I'm recording, if this is something that I'm supposed to expound on and channel, publicly, or if it was just a matter of just sharing these cards, because if you know, if you particularly are familiar with tarot, or you are a reader or spiritual in some capacity, then I'm sure the intensity of these frequencies is conveying quite clearly. But I still feel some conviction to speak on it. I'm just being transparent with where I am with it. So whatever comes out, I don't know. It might be one of those things where it ends up being a second part or something like that. But the most primitive observation that I made of the cards was that there are a lot of tens. There are double tens in each card, each one positioned in a different way, because we got the 2 tens here, then we have this one, which is 19, so this is 20, 19, and then oh snap, this is 21, so even more. Is that right? Yeah, that is right. So 19, 20, 21, and evolution, which is also the world card. And just so you know how these cards work, evolution is the bright side or the upright. Regression is the dark side or the reversal on the other side. Very much so on the upright. This season that is upon us is major. It's so major. It feels like the culmination of prophecies that have been spoken maybe even written, perhaps certainly written, many moons ago. Coincidentally, we're still in the energy of the last super moon of the season in Taurus, and also Taurus being very earthy. It definitely correlates here with the world showing up more or less 2 times. And then, of course, the sun, which is also some representation in the card of it, there being a spiritual and like a celestial and an earthly connection or integration. This season and era that we are embarking on, like, it feels like is as big as rapture energy conveys. And I stand firm that it's not in the orthodox or conventional sense per se that we may have been taught or conditioned or indoctrinated to interpret the text, but it's just as big. Like, the impact of the word rapture, no matter if you're religious or not, carries a certain intensity that is impactful and impressionable regardless of who you are. Like, it has a deep meaning, you know. It says something even if you don't agree with it or you are resistant to it. Like, it is provocative is where I'm trying to get to. And there's something with these tens and the world and judgment, like so much finality, but also beginning and evolving, that's depicted almost in like a duality in these just these 4 cards alone, that it feels like bigger than, again, like bigger than what I really truly have words to convey. Is something that is about to be, or already is, but certainly is about to be experienced universally, in ways that will be irrefutable, and in such a way where it'll be undeniable, like that some major shift has occurred and we are all submissive to it or integrated with it at best in some way, shape, or form. It doesn't feel like the type of thing where it's happening to and for, you know how like when the rapture talk was happening and there was like a niche group of people that were even within the group of people, like a niche group of people within the Christian capacity or religion, that were just gung-ho that this was the date, this was the time it was happening. It was almost exclusive, you know, like even those that are could have been relatable to that group, i.e. other Christians, were not all in agreement with what this small group, like this almost what do you call it, like not case study, but that's interesting that I'm hearing that, like almost I hear it like when there's a study and it's like a small collective of individuals that, I heard it literally flashed in and flashed out. I hate when that happens. Focus group, there it is, like this focus group. I don't even know if that's right, but at least it came back to me, thank you. Of individuals that maybe in some ways there was an observance of, you know, from some other higher or distant, I will say, perspective of how folks would react, you know, to such a proclamation, you know, like how would people respond? So I don't know, that's another aside, you know, but the point I was making is it's not that, you know. Now everyone may have their own interpretation or perception of what they're experiencing, but one thing is for sure, that this is a universal occurrence. Like something is getting ready to happen. It may already be underway, but the impact of it is going to be so profound and pronounced that there'll be an agreement that something's going on. Pardon me, something is different, something has changed, something has ended, or something has begun. Like, it's going to be a mark that signifies that we're not in Kansas anymore. Yeah, yeah. And I was seeing all types of stuff in the first channeling, which is why I was like, oh, okay, all right, I'll come back to that. But I was seeing like this transfusion of light beings, divine beings coming into integration with earthly beings, like almost being born into the earth again, but really almost in a resurrective type of way. And how that gets to be, I'm not 100% sure, but I was seeing like an influx of, like a dispatch of legions of light, especially when you see the sun. And I was seeing it like all these different rays of light that are being dispatched, maybe even beamed into now my voice is trying to go, beamed into the earth realm, but were being illuminated through human vessels, so it could be the likes of deities that energies that we've given a name of deities to, of all types. Think of all the different types of religions and just high ascended masters and gods and goddesses, celestial bodies and beings, like all the things that we know of. Maybe even there being a familiarity or some connection by way of what you know and what you believe, or how that may be the may indicate what you are an open vessel to, or an open channel, if you will, to. And everybody might not be an open channel to certain things, but I feel like there's something about there being an effect of this influx of light and frequency, however it's coming through. Again, that I said everyone is going to feel. So in the lowest frequency, what it might feel like is psychosis for those that are not particularly poised to be conducive to high frequencies of energy. However, these flows are coming in, so that's on the lowest level. Like it may drive some to feel insane or feel off balance, or to literally, have like some type of psychotic break or episode, because the intensity of this frequency of light is more than their vessel can manage, at once, or from where they are, because a lot of the preparation it's been happening over, lifetimes, with each iteration of creation. There's been, a higher preparation of the vessel to absorb these frequencies and conduct them. But particularly, there's been like an accelerated processing over the past, I say at least decade, maybe a little bit more, where it's almost sped up, and there's been like a pressure to kind of catch up in a sense with the universal order of evolution, and as it said, many are called, few are chosen. And how I see it is that not many people chose themselves to be a yes to that call. It either seemed too big, too, too fantastical perhaps, or there was like a lack of belief, especially during the age of belief, to connect with it, or there was a distorted belief, which wasn't hard because all of our attentions were diverted otherwise and dispersed to other things than what this singular integration turns out to be, which is between spirit and self, or universe and humanity. divinity and humanity, however you relate to it. So anyway, so I'm saying that to say, like I said, like there's going to be a massive impact and effect of whatever this is. And hopefully, my prayer is that everybody that is in alignment for it truly does receive it and accept it for with all the splendor that it admits. However, I feel like the distinction, distortion, and maybe that separating of the wheat and chaff is between those whose vessels are almost are like rejected, like when your body like almost immune to it in some type of way, or like are rejecting it in a strange way. And usually when that happens biologically, it's on account of, well, actually it's the opposite is true. I was about to say something else, but when there is like an infection, so to speak, is usually because there's some antibody or some aspect of this contact, that some antibody that's already been introduced in the system that more or less is looking to fight off whatever it is it detects. But there's I don't know why I'm saying that exactly, because it may actually be the inverse of what I'm trying to relay, which is that those that haven't been acquainting themselves with their supreme or with any universal bodies or frequencies of light in any significant way, their bodies may have built up like in the adverse sense, like an immunity or a rejective response to what frequencies are flowing in now. But those that have been, more or less like vaccinating, go figure, themselves with vitality, in many, many ways. If you resonate with the message, then I don't think I really need to affirm you on what that gets to look like, really. If you know, you know. Those are the ones that are almost like more absorbent to this transmission, in a sense. So yeah, it is like the flip-flop of it. But yeah, like there's some, and it's like, whenever I learned, that whenever the divine wants to do something new in the earth, it comes through the womb. And I've always said, like, the earth is the womb of the universe. Or when the divine wants to do something universally new, I feel like the earth is that womb, and even more practical to what we can relate to ourselves humanly. The feminine is the womb, and not just the female, but that aspect of femininity that we were all being coaxed to cultivate within ourselves, masculine or feminine, male or female, I should say, but particularly by way of the feminine leading the charge in many different ways. And those particular masculine that were conducive to cultivating their feminine force would be able to would follow or be inspired by that charge, no problem, because there wouldn't be that containment of, or that limitation of the ego keeping them from doing so. So that's how it gets to be that this preparation of pregnancy, like almost a pregnancy of passion by way of this light force, has been underway for a very long time. And I feel like now, with all of this energy, like it's like when all of this final energy and like you know, absolute energy with these tens and the major arcanas that are here, it's like when the baby's ready to come and there's nothing that you can do about it. You know, you can definitely speed up the process by inducing labor, but when it's happening naturally, it's happening. You know, now there may be some time between the beginning, you know, the start of labor or dilation or whatever the case may be, but more or less, like once that process starts, you know that something must be produced, something must be born, something must be delivered, more or less. And I feel like that's the point that we're at now, you know, where the labor pangs have started. They probably been started. This might even be an overdue delivery in many ways. But one thing about it is that it can't be stopped. No more than evolution can be stopped. You know, and it's like almost all hands on deck, you know, to pretty much just be in waiting for this delivery. Each and every one, you know, personally, some don't even know they're pregnant or don't even know, you know, that they're about to go into labor or they're in labor in some way, shape, or form, which I always thought was pretty interesting. Those people that don't know that they're even pregnant until they're going into labor. I'm like, how does that get to be? Like, that's so weird. But it happens, apparently. And then there are some, you know, there are different types of moms in waiting for delivery. Some want to rush the process and be walking and taking freaking, what's that stuff that people take? Castor oil and stuff like that, like trying to hurry it up, which I never understood either, because I'm like, don't you know when that baby gets here, it's probably going to be more all consuming. Well, it is absolutely more all consuming than it just being in your belly right now. So that's a whole nother thought. But there are different types of moms, and then there are some that just patiently wait, you know, eagerly wait, excitedly wait, that keep themselves busy and active in the waiting. You know, that's one aspect. And these are all, as I'm saying this, these are all aspects of this process of pregnancy that we've all more or less been managing at some, you know, some don't, you know, don't govern themselves properly throughout their pregnancy. They engage in risky behavior, sometimes even reckless behavior. So everyone's handled their little bundle of joy, if you will, in different ways. And ultimately, in many regards, that's what affects the delivery, like what, you know, the end result gets to be, how the baby fares, you know, how healthy it is or not, or, you know, and not to say that everything that, you know, because sometimes things happen and it has nothing to do per se with how you've managed yourself through the pregnancy. So I don't want to be insensitive, but you get my drift pretty much. Either way, the fact of the matter is, like, the powers that were, peace to Shavi Zane, have been wanting to delay this delivery, and not even just the powers that were in the earth. This is a as above so below frequency, where it's above our pay grade, beyond our senses and sensibility. It's something much bigger than just the earth and the inhabitants thereof, which was also the point of preparation, to even be considerate of that much, you know, or to be open to that ideal at all, and not just in a limited way that we've been indoctrinated in many ways to submit to it, i.e. to religious divine bodies of worship or reverence, but something even beyond what what beyond that projection, and not to say you can't believe in what you believe, but just being open to the possibility that it could be more expansive than what you've been told or what you've been taught or what you've always known. That was also a part of it, because ultimately our beliefs have been our limitations, and so that's also a part of this conduciveness to accept this frequency of light. And what it might even be is just intelligence, given we're in the age of Aquarius, which is a knowing. There could be information, revelation that's coming through to incite an awakening of new ideology or a new perspective of life as you've known it. And even that, in a more practical sense, is a matter of acceptance, where, as I said, there'll be some that will receive it as truth and deem it to be valuable, and some that will repel it or reject it from their operating systems, of which they are more secure with or complacent in. So it could be in a very mystical way that this gets to play out, given that we're in a Taurus new moon, and this feels very activated in this time, especially going in now being in Scorpio season. I've been saying that there's going to be a lot of light shed on the shadows of even our own consciousness, or subconsciousness, and all of that is to be taken into consideration and taken into account regarding not if creation evolves, because, as I've said, it's a no-brainer. It must be. So it's a matter of how you evolve. Change is underway no matter what. And like I said, on the lowest frequency, that resistance of change and rejection of it, like it feels more than resistance, like refusal, like almost refusing to integrate, doesn't mean that you're still not under that order. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that there still won't be an impact. It just may have there might just be a very adverse reaction to it in a way that is detrimental to the human being, whomever is having that experience. In the highest frequency, my phone's going off at 12:50. In the highest frequency, which is what, 7-8. So yeah, there's that change again. It would be a matter of, as I said the other day, going with the flow. Yeah, I do. I think I did come on like Monday or something, because I remember talking about going with the flow or something like that. About going with the flow, and that flow being, again, this integration of frequency, whether it be light, information, awareness, awakening. I don't know exactly how it's about to immerse the universe, perhaps, but especially the earth realm as we know it. It would be for the purposes of ascension, being uplifted, being exalted to a higher frequency of productivity, of prosperity, of health, perhaps, of understanding, understanding. Like to be almost like supercharged to ultimately carry out the mission as you were, as you already were in process, but in a way that is even more efficient than before. Like in a practical sense, it's being so open to this conduction that you allow it to fuel your creativity, so that the things that maybe you've been working hard on don't seem to be such a struggle or a strive anymore. You know, it's like almost like you're trudging through the sand or through the mud, and then all of a sudden you're not. You know, like you're on pavement or plush grass, or you know, or something where you've been used to, you know, giving it all your might and all your strength, or exerting a lot of energy toward a thing, and then suddenly that resistance isn't there anymore, but your ambition, you know, and that frequency of force is still in motion. 12:52 as my phone goes off again. So it's like that how do I say it, like that frequency of determination is still in motion, but the resistance isn't. So it's like you almost catapult, you know, ahead in whatever way that I'm speaking of, because like you've been activated in a way to you've been conditioned to work against resistance, so it makes you stronger and more, like it gives you more of a push and a drive and determination, that once you don't have that resistance, just, you know, is almost like like a turbocharge forward. You know, like, I know you know what I'm trying to say. I was trying to make it more plain, I think, to myself, honestly. But anyway, yeah, so there's so much that, like, this is what I'm saying, like, it's already 31 minutes, and I'm like, you know, I didn't want to say anything because I didn't feel like, the intimidation isn't feeling like I wouldn't say enough and really get out all that I feel about this depiction here, you know, in these few cards. Like, there's so much that I feel in my body, and that's where I just have to, you know, submit to everyone having their own personal experience, or being able to this transmission to reach whomever it's supposed to, and to be, you know, filtered as it may, because maybe I don't need to necessarily impose my prejudices on how I see it, because, as I said, this is something that's going to be a personal experience, even as it's a collective one anyway. You know, it's like if the rapture happened in the collective sense that we know it to be, by way of the Bible's description, just taking at face value, we all will see the sky crack. You know, we all will see this spectacular before our eyes, but how you process it will be quite personal. Some might be afraid, some might be excited, some might be confused, some, you know, might be anxious, you know, some might be worried, some might be elated, you know, like it could be a range of emotions and responses that get to happen, but whatever it is for the greatest good of all, is to finally put a closure to an era that has been long since overdue to be closed, that's been more or less like holding up the evolution and the progression or advancement of this new era, that is not just for the purposes of saying it's a new season or a new time or a new era, but it's for the good of the inhabitants of the earth. And however there is an integration between us and the universe to all be on one accord of a higher frequency, for, I believe, for our survival, you know, and in our existence, and also for the preservation of the future, you know, for prophecies to ultimately have a place to land. And if the frequency of life as we know it doesn't rise and ascend to a certain level, it will cease to exist. You know, life as we know it will cease to exist. And, you know, in terms of prophecy, like, it'll always regenerate in some way, shape, or form to fulfill itself. But why need to do that when there's so many open, willing vessels here that are able to carry the charge, to literally conduct the charge for change? I think that was the key, you know, for us to be conducive. And since so many are, now we can carry on. Yeah, creation can carry on. All right, so I'm going to finally give these cards a rest. And I already know, because I saw it, that the full card is under here. And this is the first card in the deck, starting from ground zero, so to speak. A new beginning, yet again, solidifying this message and how profound it is. You know, how simple it seems, like unassuming almost, but it's major. And in my deck, the word that I use for the full is faith. So faith has been the matter of preparation for this transmission of light and frequency, and it's also the way forward. All right, so let's see what we got. I'm just take a few because I'm already well over time, and I still feel like I didn't really do it justice. Of course. Wow, look at this. 5 of Swords. Yeah, there's still some energies resistant, you know, to the change. 5. But we know what happens to that. They end up defeating themselves or outsmarting themselves, you know. Exactly. Literally an attack against their own agenda, even in the ways that they think they're being clever and calculated. And this could be any resistance. It's not anything or anyone in particular. It could be whatever resistance there is to the universe, you know, on what has been divinely determined to be the next course of events, or the unfolding of evolution as it is, you know. What this energy doesn't stand a chance. But it's like nobody told them that, though. Ooh, that was a big popper. Never seen that. Okay, Magician. This could even be manipulative tactics, particularly like psychic attacks. If we're talking about manipulation, it is in the upright, but this could also be the upright could even be representing the confidence by which these energies are being fueled, because for whatever reason they feel like their mystical force, you know, whatever it is they submit to, possess or possessed by, or whatever doctrine they subscribe to, is just as powerful, if not more powerful, than what they may be up against. And it's partially due to the fact that it's been I'm struggling to say productive, because it's not productive. It's been impactful. It's had an impact up until this point. I guess maybe successful in some way, shape, or form, even though what they don't realize is that they've ultimately been creating a mess for them to now inhabit, you know, these energies that have been resistant to the greatest good of all. Like those that champion the cause for regression ultimately, or captivity or captivation of creation, are all where they thought that they, in the shorthand, were creating something masterful for themselves, but ultimately they've been creating a mess that now they get to inherit, you know, because those that are not contained by these forces and condemned by them are ascending beyond that influence. And so the only thing is, like, you know, the greed, let's say in a practical sense, that has been perpetuated just in our country, you know, not to say it's not worldwide, but just in our country, is been beneficial. Maybe that's the word I was looking for. It's been beneficial and profitable for a select few for a very long time. But ultimately, it's created a world that is a country that's hanging on by a thread. And when it's all said and done, and this transmission, whatever this is, takes place, all they'll have left is the ruins that they created, you know. So it's like, now you beat down society to its knees, so now you don't have any resource of people that are willing and able and pleased to work for your companies, or to buy your products, or to contribute to your bottom line, or to play the roles and fill the positions, not just by employment standards, but just the role of humanity as it is. People are not so willing to submit to those roles without resentment, you know. So the morale of creation is low in a great deal, especially for the remnant that, you know, are attached to this what's the right word, like this I don't know the word that I'm looking for, but there are some that are that may be attached to this disparity, but what they are ultimately inheriting is not, you know, the sheep, you know, the docile servants that are willing to just work for their own survival anymore. It's much more rebellious now, you know, is what I'm trying to get out. So even in the concept of working for survival, or because they feel like they so-called have to, it won't be in the same morale or at the same frequency of productivity as it once was before, when people were less awakened and more inclined to devote themselves to this, you know, falsehood of this illusion of the American dream, you know, most specifically. So it's like, where they were, you know, getting rich and powerful by any means necessary, they didn't realize that they were dwindling their supply of resources in every sense of the word. Because you're not going to have happy workers, you're not going to have happy consumers, you know, and all of that energy matters when it rolls back up or back down to the bottom line. So in the short term, it, you know, in the grand scheme of eternity, it might have been profitable, but in the long term, it's it's impoverished, you know. It will always be impoverished unless there is a shift in ideals, you know, or in consciousness, ultimately. Like knowing better and doing better, which is it's a big ask for these individuals that have been conditioned for lifetimes, for generations, for eons, for years, for, you know, centuries, whatever, to operate in this fashion of, you know, by any means necessary. And on the backs of whomever I can step on or stab in the back. All right, but let's see what's on the other side of this Magician, because it actually might be upright. Okay, we got the Knight of Pentacles. The Knight of Pentacles is definitely the best knight that you want to see coming. I guess maybe it's turning around on the other side of the spectrum. So this could even be representing a split between those that continue to conduct themselves in the fashion of old times. And here it is, that resistance to change within themselves and around themselves, that this cycle gets to play out over and over, but each time it just becomes more and more detrimental to themselves, whether they realize it or not. And that could even be folks that hold on to at least some semblance of all the things that they're fighting for, like wealth and notoriety, popularity, riches, whatever it is. There still could be a possession of those things, but the other part of it is that there also is a possession by those things. So that's a real bad place to be. Because again, it just perpetuates cycles that are ultimately destructive, you know, that don't have a happy ending, no matter how you splice it. And then the more you perpetuate that cycle, the more you're passing that legacy and that fortune down to generations that come after you, until someone is brave enough to break it, if they're brave enough to break it. Because the most prominent season for that, you know, cycle breaking and curse breaking and things of that sort, was what has led us to this point, the time before now that has led us to where we are at this moment. It's a little bit rougher of a road for anyone that's jumping in at this point, because, as I said, the resources are far more scarce. The understanding, even in the spiritual sense, the grace, the exceptions, maybe even the mercy in some way, shape, or form, is a bit more scarce to support that turnaround than it has been up until now. All right, let me see. The Knight of Pentacles, one more, and then I'm gonna get out of here. Yeah, not too bad on time. Oh, 111 as my phone's going off. 111. Wow. Again, if that's not a confirmation, new beginnings in mind, body, and spirit. Wow, with the Emperor. I don't know. It's definitely given a duality here, where this could be an allegiance, maybe even like an offering of sorts to an emperor in the upright, that, of course, in the best case scenario, is responsible, you know, with their power, that wields it with accountability, with the best interest of the kingdom in mind, or its, you know, its subjects, you know, constituents or whatever in mind, its employees, you know, whatever this represents here. Family, it's family in mind. It could be that, like someone, you know, there being a shift, and perhaps even a long time coming with this Knight of Pentacles, but certainly reliable and sustainable, no doubt, in the highest frequency of this devotion, let's say this is, to a more stable regime. And ideally, even in the highest frequency, it would be a devotion to one's own personal state of security and stability. Not even to something outside of self, but to, again, cultivating that state of sovereignty in spirit, mind, and body within yourself, for yourself, by yourself, but still as it is, as it also makes an impact on a collective force, i.e., for the greatest good of all. So it definitely could be, this could be those two, you know, and the difference between the two sides of the spectrum is, with the Magician card, for me, it's always a fine line between manipulation and manifestation. Two different connotations of the word. But if this is all low, you know, it's, as I said, where what I'm saying is, it's all this devotion to a power outside of yourself, this force that you don't even really benefit from, you know, like you're just being taxed, is what I'm seeing with the Knight of Pentacles in the lowest frequency. Like being taxed to just continue to give and pour in, and it's like with the Knight of Pentacles, you could never truly make enough to sustain yourself, to manage all of your affairs, definitely not to be in a position of prosperity or even supreme profitability as you once were before. It's like slow money right here. And then the fact that it's slow is one thing, that it's slow, and it may even be steady with the Knight of Pentacles, but it's also already accounted for. It's like, yeah, you might have a paycheck or even a business, but every dollar is already kind of spent before you even get it, whether that's personally or to refund the business or refuel the business, to pay your taxes. You know, it's something here about that I also sense, where in the highest frequency, it makes sense how I'm putting it about these dualities, like dual dimensions happening at once, or a duality happening in this one dimension at the same time, in a very profound way, like in a way that is undeniable. Like you can see the difference here. But if it's just all one streamline of potential consciousness, is exactly what I'm saying. Like this devotion to, this insistence on manipulation at all costs for the purposes of profit, won't ultimately fare to be much or worth much in the end. And as I said, it'll already be accounted for. Like it'll already be have somebody else's name on it or something else's name on it that feels bigger, like almost like like an all-consuming, controlling energy. In this case, like the Knight of Pentacles can do nothing but submit to the Emperor. Whatever the Emperor says he owes, or whatever is required of him, of the Knight of Pentacles, is what he must produce or what he must submit to. There's no negotiation. So if this Emperor isn't yourself, there's going to always be a deficit, one way or another. And that's probably the spirit of evolution that I'm really, that's really like the overarching theme. Like, as long as there's always this like reverence and allegiance and worship, almost imbalanced devotion to something outside of you, and not prioritizing, or yourself taking precedence, there's always going to be some disparity or deficiency. And in this case, it's very much so material with the Knight of Pentacles. I think it's significant that that's being depicted here. The thing that hits us hardest as humans. Because we've been getting hit hard spiritually and mentally for forever before we've realized it. But you know it when somebody's picking your pockets. You know that. And that's where it'll hurt the most. So that's something else that I don't want to get too much into, but I feel like the best way to observe this and to transmit this is that the shift, first of all, is within everyone's power to toe that line between manipulation and manifestation, like alchemy at its finest, responsibly. Like, you can create the worst for yourself or the best for yourself. And in the highest frequency, you become the ultimately, what is it? The captain of your fate? Wait. The master of your fate and the captain of your soul. Is that right? I'm the master. I'm the captain of my soul. Why does that sound strange to me? And that's a shame. If you know, you know. It's just been a long time since I said that. Or is it I am the captain of my fate, I am the master of my soul? I'm gonna look it up real quick. But anyway, let's see. And here's the Four of Pentacles. No matter how damn. Here's the cause for celebration. And Four of Pentacles in this case could just be stability, you know, but real stability. But again, on the other side, it could also be holding on to things that just are no longer that stable anymore. Like, you've put all of your energy into a certain ideal that is not, you know, it doesn't create the balance that it used to. Oh yeah, I think I said it right the first time. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Invictus is the poem by William Ernest Henley. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I hope I said that right the first time. Did I say I am the master? I am the captain of my fate. I am the master. I think I might have flip-flopped captain and master and then flipped it back around. And if you know, you know, that's kind of embarrassing because that poem is ingrained on my psyche, but it has been a while. Either way, even that has a powerful connotation in this moment. You know, like that marks the culmination, you know, the ending of a cycle, a process, literally the ending of a process. And that's where we are now. So no matter what the judgment may be, you know, at this point, there still is the power of choice at hand as to how you respond and react to the new normal, the new age, the new era that is upon us, and how you integrate with it. And you can either subscribe to that ideal or ultimately surrender your rights to some other force or some other entity and be subservient to it for it to decide for you. And who's signing up for that? Not me. All right, so anyway, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Until next time. 1, 2, 3 on the clock. Here we go. Evolution, progression, moving forward. Thank you for listening and watching. Until next time, as always, I'll leave you with